Oh my, this game was a disaster. I never really heard about this game until like a couple of days ago. I just kept seeing ads and people being like, oh, Chrono Odyssey this, Chrono Odyssey that. It's going to be the best new game. Yeah, man, for sure, man. It was the new pile of dog shit of the year. I got into the beta and my expectations were already pretty low to begin with. I don't really play traditional MMOs, right? I played WoW retail, I think, for 2 hours, then I uninstalled it after seeing like the amount of just stuff it throws at you. New World was alright, just couldn't really get into it. So basically, I am the worst person to have an opinion on like systems, mechanics, and whatnots in MMO. But this beta was literally unplayable. It was astonishing. Chrono Odyssey uses Unreal Engine 5, and I know there are people that hate that generic Unreal 5 look that's in a few games. But there are some amazing games that utilize Unreal Engine 5, like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 and Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered. Unfortunately, Chrono Odyssey is not part of this list, and at times it looks worse than these generic UE5 games. The lighting is bad, especially when transitioning into different areas. The terrain, foliage, or whatever, it looks terrible. The landscape from a distance sometimes looks like it's ripped straight out of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It's horrendously bad. The only good thing about this beta that I played so far was the character customization. I think the character customization was actually pretty cool. I just hope that there will be like armor sets that show off some of like the character features and not hide them under like some crazy chest piece or helmet or whatever. And while we're on that topic, I didn't see any options of transmogging any of the armor gear. Maybe I'm not far enough in the game since it could be like an endgame feature, or it's just not a feature for a beta, which the latter is understandable. But I do wish that in the main game they introduced transmogging early because, like I said, the character customization is the only good thing about this game so far, and transmogging really highlights that. And let's be real, drip is the true endgame for any game. Another of many issues with this game is the movement. It's jank. Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remake looked better than this, and I'm pretty sure that it looked jank on purpose in that game since they're trying to go for like a more nostalgia look. It just feels bad, and the mouth and facial movements don't look right as well. And look, I get it, these types of things don't affect gameplay, therefore shouldn't be judged, but I see it as a compounding effect. Not only the graphics are terrible, it's not well optimized, the movement is jank, no voice acting, and the mouth and facial movements are off. It really ruins the immersion. I could live with one or two problems, but it's the compounding problems is where the issue is for me. And whenever I'm out and about in the open world doing my side quests and whatever, from a distance, I'm not even talking about that far in my opinion, I can't tell if the stick figure is an online player, an NPC, or an enemy. And I picked the Ranger class, so at least for me, keeping my distance is a big thing, especially since I want to get as many shots with my bow in before I take out my rapier to stab him to death. There were times I ran into an enemy thinking they were an NPC or a fellow gamer. Turns out they were a zombie. Cool, I die. And I'm brought up a map where I pick my respawn area, except the map is so bad I don't really recognize where I'm picking my respawn location until I'm actually there. And with fast travel being limited, I would say, there would be times where I ended up walking for a long period of time. And look, I'm not an MMO player. Maybe that's just what a normal MMO experience is, but I found that very frustrating. If they had a better detailed map like Google Maps satellite view, or even just a more lenient fast travel, it would have lessened my frustrations with it. The tutorials were more frustrating. In the intro sequence, basically everything before the whole time jump, whatever, the cutscene and the actual game world didn't really sync up that well, which made me confused at times. And there were some steps of the tutorial that you could outright ignore, and I think that's really bad. Destiny 2 had this problem with their new player experience, and they don't really force you to know, hey, pressing this button is your ability, you should do it. Especially when they just have a prompt off to the side while all of this is going on, someone is bound to miss something. And I mean, that's exactly what happened in Destiny 2. I was helping someone get through a dungeon and they didn't know they had a melee ability in this endgame dungeon. I looked at some other videos and some people's reactions at this early tutorial quest for some armor reward. Some people said they didn't even know that was a thing. Now, whether it was because of a bug or not, I'm not sure, but it was scary seeing a decent amount of people that just were surprised that there was even a reward chest given for the end of a quest step. That, along with some, I would say, important functions, were just optional side quests. That is bad design. Sure, crafting armor and weapon was mandatory, but processing materials, making potions, buying necessary harvesting tools are behind a missable side quest. That is really bad. I spent gold on all the tools after I realized the vendor was giving these out, and then I started doing other side quests that rewarded these same tools for free. And some of these side quests made me buy that same tool from that same vendor again. It's just really bad. The combat I think is pretty similar to New World. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. I'm not an MMO connoisseur. But the main problem I had with the combat was if I was underleveled or not. In Chrono Odyssey, it feels like the character level doesn't really matter. It's more towards your gear level. And the character level is really just essentially a way to gate your gear progression. For example, in order to equip like the epic or purple tier gear, you need to be level 15. That I'm fine with. I've played a couple of games that are more towards gear score and not so much character level, but the problem I had was whether or not I'm in the right zone to farm or to be in generally. I don't think there was even an indicator of enemies being underleveled or overleveled. If they did explain it, I missed it. And if there is an indication, it's not obvious enough. So I don't know if I essentially graduated from like the starting area or not, because there is no feedback of any kind that is telling me to stay or to move on to the next area. And also that boss that they had you fight in like the underground area or whatever, they never made it clear that it was a checkpoint kind of boss, like Margit from Elden Ring. He's there as a benchmark of his skill. If you're not strong enough, you can leave, get stronger, come back to beat him. With this boss in Chrono Odyssey, it seemed to me, and apparently a lot of other people, that this was a mandatory fight that you had to beat at that exact moment. It was only like after like my 5th attempt that I was convinced there has to be a way to leave this area to get stronger. And that's with my knowledge after playing like Pal World, Elden Ring, and Zelda. But there was no indication. It was just a gut feeling I had. Not every player is going to have that gut feeling as I have. And so I think a lot of players probably quit after constantly losing to that fight, purely from the fact they thought it was a mandatory boss that they had to beat at that exact moment. But yeah, that and the story sucks. No dialogue, terrible side quests, like this whole quest line with this guy stuck at the waterfall was horrendous. I'm pretty sure Oblivion does this a whole lot better, and that game came out like 19 years ago. Look, I didn't really see any of the trailers beforehand, right? But I certainly don't want to watch any of it now. I understand this game is in beta, but because it's in beta, it's the perfect time to criticize the game, since that is kind of the purpose of a beta. And as someone that's currently not into MMOs, but does want to get into one, this is certainly not one of those. The story is a joke, the graphics are god-awful, the movement is jank, the enemies are jank, the tutorial might as well just not exist, poor game design everywhere, and to me, I didn't really see anything that was like unique or captivating about this game from like the few hours I played in the beta. Maybe it was in the trailers, but I'm not interested in watching the trailers anymore. They got a lot of work to do with this game, and I think I read somewhere that this game was going to be released like later this year. Yeah, right. I hope I read that wrong, because if it's released in the state that it's in right now, it will be dead on arrival. That'll do it for me for today. Make sure to like and subscribe, as my goal is to get to 500 subs by the end of the month. I hope you guys have a great rest of your days, and I appreciate you guys for watching.